staying at 0. Okay. I think I figured it out. Oh boy, technology. We've got a lot of wonderful things, but boy oh boy does the consistency of it just really walk a tightrope constantly. Yeah, we got, okay, we're good, we're stable. It was, the issue was I didn't notice it, but because I haven't had to like upload anything or download anything, so it hasn't been an issue really. But when they were doing construction, they jostled, you know, when they were remodeling my apartment, they they jostled my router, so that my Ethernet cable had kind of fallen loose, and that's what I use when I'm streaming, obviously, because it's going to be much more stable and consistent than trying to use the Wi-Fi. And I didn't notice it, and then once I did notice it and plugged it in, my computer was like, no, we're not going to use it. No, we're already hooked to the Wi-Fi. We're not going over to Ethernet. No, we can't do that. We just can't do that. That's not how it works. And my computer was just spazzing about it. And so that's what the issue was. But we rebooted, got ourselves plugged in, good to go. So hopefully everyone else's day is going more smoothly than mine, which I just had to spend like 10 minutes troubleshooting because a stupid wire got disconnected. I love technology. I really do. But it's a finicky world that we live in these days with the technology that we have. And sometimes my patience groweth thin. Anywho, it is Monday. It's Monday. Monday fun day? Is that what they say? I don't know. That feels a little corporate slogan to make us hate work less type of thing to say, but you know, I think some people genuinely believe it. At any rate, what did I want to work on today? What I want to pull up here is I want to pull up the map, because I've been feeling lately that maybe a new fresh project would be a fun idea, because I've had requests from a few people at this point in time to share the documents that I am creating while doing these streams. And my only hesitation with that is I don't want my players to get all wise ass on me and download everything that I write that's going to show up for them. But just kind of expanding on the idea too, if I'm going to create something for the sake of making it available to my viewers, especially if my viewer base is going to grow, which, I mean, at the rate it's been growing so much faster than I had expected it to. It's been actually really amazing and really flattering to see how many people are interested and like listening to me and like watching the stuff that I make. But you know, with that in mind, and with these thoughts that I have of trying to, it's probably not going to happen this month because I'm super busy this month as it is, but next month start setting up, you know, maybe a more of like a network type of situation for disseminating all of the stuff that I am creating on here. It seems to me like it'd be fun if we just kind of start fresh with a new campaign that people can see. You know, you can see me in the process of building the whole thing, and I can work on trying to make it available, just like periodically doing drops for people to download if they want the stuff to use for their own games and stuff like that, and eventually have a finished final product for viewers to be able to utilize that kind of has this backlog companion of everything that goes into making it, so that if there's questions, people can try and find, you know, the stream, and I can try and find a way to label at the very least label the VODs in such a way that they correspond with segments in this new campaign that I work on, so then people can basically see the editing notes of everything. And I don't know, it seemed to me like that'd be kind of a cool idea. Yeah, I don't know. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So what I kind of wanted to do is I just want to pull open the map and just scour it for some regions that don't have much fleshed out and would end up making for a really cool campaign, something that would end up being a very rich, lively campaign. And I've got a couple ideas in mind, and I'm just going to sort of sit here and pontificate, and if anyone comes in and is watching and wants to offer suggestions or requests in the chat, then by all means do that. It's, like I'm saying, I want to do this for the surprising number of people who are actually interested in the stuff that I'm doing, and that's still a strange thing to me that so many people already have sort of, shown interest in what I'm writing, and it's very flattering to me. Like, I want it to be sort of, I don't know that I'll say a group project just because the logistics of that would make it weird and impossible to actually do. It'll still be something that I'm creating, but creating for you guys to utilize is the idea, the intent here. And so I'm just trying to think about what would be some good options for that. And I think it kind of comes down to what would be the best way. I feel like if I'm going to provide something that's going to end up being like a usable campaign of sorts for people to use, then the approach to it would be to find something that has a diverse set of things to make in it. So when I think about that, it seems to me like that would be it would be good then to make sure the region includes, at least a couple different terrain types, a couple I don't know, I lost my train of thought when I was saying that. It doesn't really make sense. A couple different terrain types, definitely one of the big cities that exists in this world, as well as maybe some potential for, I don't know, how do I want to put this, just like a place that would be ripe for villainous activity. So that way it could be a really, a good solid, like a solid foundation for people to sort of change motivations but still have the primary things that they need intact, is kind of the thought that I have there. Hold up, I gotta check. Alright, sorry. So with those thoughts in mind, I have a few different regions that I think could be good. One of them is this area right here, which is right at the base of the mountains. While it's not in the center of the mountains, being at the outskirts of the mountains and stuff like that still gives us a lot of opportunity to include some mountainous terrain, which could end up resulting in a lot of interesting, like, dwarf Duergar type of activity, stuff like that. There's river here, so there's like a major river here, so there'd be a good source of water-based activity, which is always nice to mix it up. It's got plains, which then can, because it's in sort of a northern area, it could also lend itself to being some generalized forest. It's not like thick black out the sky level of woods here, but it could be, we could provide some of that. So we've got a lot of different terrains, as well as there being a city here, Konigheim. So this would be a good region to do. So that's one of the areas I'm kind of considering. One of the other areas here that might be interesting is this region right here with Rhodanos in the Lost Lands. This one would be much less diverse in landscape, but it's easier to produce something that can be sort of just like a blank slate set of options for players if they want to utilize this stuff, strictly because Rhodanos is extremely isolated within this world. It does not have contact with anything else. The Lost Lands is considered the most dangerous place to be in this world. It's the one area that does not seem to be recovering very quickly, if at all, after the unhinging. And so because of that, everyone sort of assumes that the people of Rhodanos are gone, that Rhodanos is not an existing city anymore. So this would be a very good region for the sake of just creating a very isolated sort of self-contained campaign or adventure, which again is really good if it's something that I'm going to be, producing for other people to use. Is sort of the idea. Because if I'm gonna create something that is explicitly for use by other people, I want it to really be a framework, an idea that like I can produce some villains that have diverse motives that they're after, but generalized actions that you can just kind of trade around motives, so that way whatever your campaign is, whatever your players are interested in doing, you can kind of just change the attitude of the characters. Oh, excuse me. You couldn't tell by the fact that I'm moving kind of slow already. I'm tired today. It's a tired day. It's a sleepy, stormy kind of day here. One of those days where the weather is just not great. Low motivation kind of day. It's just one of those kind of days. Everyone has them. I don't consider it a problem, but just to explain it, as it is, just kind of day. So motivating days for you, John. You know what? Everyone's got their own thing, and it's not to say that I dislike rainy days. I actually find them quite comfortable. Hey there, Chow Mein. I find them quite comfortable, but I think that's why I get low motivation, because I just am very comfortable and very cozy in them. So I'm kind of like always in the mindset of maybe just a movie and a nap on the couch would be good today. This is what always ends up happening with me with rainy days. So I quite enjoy them, but yeah, I don't find them motivating. I'm much more motivated on like bright, comfortable days, because they just get me active and make me want to do stuff, even if that ends up being sitting around and not going outside. And I think a lot of it's too just because I'm a big window gazer, right? I was always that kid that it's a sunny day outside and I'm just staring out the window. And so, but the thing is staring out the window kind of gets me alert, because I keep bird feeders and stuff. So it's like, oh, there's pretty birds flying around and everything. They are not out there today. They are not active today. They're even less active. I'm really sad. There was a bird nest by my car in my parking unit, and the bird nest fell. And I'm hoping that means that like the baby birds took off, but it seems a little early for that. But I also didn't see any egg bits. I don't know what it means, but I was kind of sad by that. I love watching the baby birds. I don't know. Anyway, that's a real tangent there. At any rate, welcome guys. I'm sitting here kind of pontificating. I'm thinking I'm gonna start a new project. Because I've had, a few people request that I make my resources as well as some of the stuff that I produce available for viewers and everything like that, which is something I find very flattering, for sure. But what I want to do is I want to start a new project if I'm going to do that. And there's two reasons that I want to do that, like I was explaining. One of them is I think it would be really fun to be producing like a campaign that people can go back and look at sort of the VODs as sort of like editor's notes, so to speak. So that way, if there's questions about why things are the way they are, if people want insights on how I came about creating something like that, they can go right to the source and they can see that kind of stuff. And I just think that would be a really neat resource especially for like new DMs who are especially interested in trying to produce their own homebrew stuff. They can see a finished product and see the process to get there. I think that would help a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And the other reason that I'd like to do that is because since thus far I've been writing stuff for my players. It's one thing if they wanted to try and find my VODs and sit through hours upon hours of me doing stuff, but I don't want them to get all Weisenheimer on me and and download the final product and play magical savants that just happen to know what's going to happen at all times. I don't think any of them would do that. But sometimes people can be little stinkers when they want to win. So I want to just avoid the temptation for that altogether. So with those thoughts in mind, I'm looking at my map here and sort of trying to think about what would be a good reason, or a good region to start an entirely new project on. And what I've kind of settled on just in my own thought processes is that there are a couple sort of criteria that I want to adhere to if I'm going to be making something for other people. One of them, obviously, it's a region that I can't, that I haven't done anything in. Kind of defeats the purpose if I've already made it. The other thing, or not the other thing, another thing that I want is I want there to be a couple different types of terrains within the hex, right? If I'm going to be making something for people to use, I want it to have a good variety of enemies and terrains, which also means a variety of NPCs to interact with, just because that provides people with a little bit of everything, right? So that way they can just like pluck out the parts that they want and use those, and then if they want to, they can rewrite their own stuff in the places of areas that they don't like, or just trash them and throw them out. I don't care. You know, once I disseminate it, it's your copy to do with what you want. That's like the spirit of D&D. They even say it in the official rule books. It's like, here's the rule books. Make changes when it suits your campaign. And you know, I want to kind of adhere to that because I think that really is the spirit and the point of D&D. It's a collective storytelling effort more than it is a game per se. If you want a game with like adherence to strict rules, then play a video game. That's what they do. So I want there to be a variety of terrains. I want there to be a major city in there, just because obviously that makes things more fun and interactable. And it makes sure that people aren't tied down to my world concept of it being, post calamity. There's not much in the way of civilization around anywhere. And that leads into kind of the final criteria, and this is less about choosing a place and more about how I'm going to try and focus the writing when I'm doing this project. I want it to be generalized enough and just sort of basic foundation enough that anyone can take it, and with just a few basic tweaks in terms of attitudes of NPCs or, like titles of things and stuff like that, they can take it and transform it into whatever their homebrew world is. I don't want people to feel like they're beholden to my ideas of what is a fun world, right? Because D&D is such a customizable thing. It's meant to be that way. I want my stuff to be that. I want my stuff to be a solid framework that can work as is, but is easy enough to sort of change and modularize for whatever purposes people have. So those are kind of the criteria that I'm looking at, and I'm open to any suggestions as people are looking at the map with me here about what would be a good area. The two areas I've kind of identified so far, I've got like 3 or 4 of them in mind. One of them being this hex right here. I'm going to zoom in on it again. This hex right here, because we've got mountains, we've got plains leading into hills that could also then, house a little bit in the way of forestry. We've got rivers here, which gives us water. It's a very good, diverse region in terms of landscapes and landmarks for all kinds of fun traveling and enemy diversity in there, as well as having a big city here, a main city, Konigheim, southwest area of the Siski Forest. Yeah, we'll go take a look at that in a second. But yeah, so Konigheim here is really good, and with the mountains, I could write it and it would make sense in my world that in the mountains we have, some dwarf Duergar types of wars going on as the dwarves are trying to reclaim their homes that were lost during the unhinging and all of that. So this area has got a lot of diversity in it, and it's one that I was interested in. You're saying southwest area of the Siski Forest. Let me look and remember what the fuck I'm I'm talking about here. Southwest, so kind of like down in this area is what I'm gathering. Kind of one of these hexes in this area. We could even expand and do a couple different hexes. It's not a bad idea. We've got some deep forest areas. Could have some hills and plains. We've got some definitely like Serengeti flames. We've got Serengeti fields. Could be flames. I don't know. Maybe we add a forest fire in there somewhere. That could be fun. There's a tear in reality that leads to the fire elemental plane. Bada bing, bada boom. It's causing like a perpetual. It's almost like the oil fields that are always on fire. It's like just like a field that's always on fire. Actually, that's really badass. I want to do that. Holy shit, that's a really fucking cool idea. I'm gonna have to make sure we use that at some point in time. But then we've also got mountains, which would then also be, that would serve for the whole Dwarven Duergar thing. The struggle with this area is that there isn't a city per se in there, but for the sake of this project, I don't think it would be that hard for us to sort of write in an expeditionary type of group that has gone down and tried to maybe reconnect a pathway that goes around the forest rather than through the forest, as part of the sort of reclaim the wilds effort and trying to make a better trade route. That could be a bit safer to connect here and then eventually go up to the Yusinoi area up there, or going further down to the southeast there. So that's a really good idea. That could be a really good region. What other regions? I'm trying to remember what other regions I had sort of identified that I thought would be really fun. We could see, like, these areas aren't terrible because they have the coast areas right there, but if the coast is the only thing they've got going for them, it's a bit more temperate in climate than the area we're working on right now, but I feel like that would get kind of monotonous. For me as a writer, I'm being selfish about that, because I will be continuing to work on what we've been working on stream for my group. I still have to produce stuff for my group. It'll just be on my own time instead of here. One idea I had is it would be really fun to explore the Frost Marsh here, which is kind of like a swamp but icy. Problem is that could be pretty monotone. Could end up being very Icewind Dale, and I worry that people would find that a little repetitive, since Icewind Dale is already there for them to use. The other area that I had talked about, I had started talking about it a little bit up here, is over here in the Rhodanos hex here. It's a little monotone in terms of terrain areas, or terrain types, I should say. But what's good about this area is Rhodanos is a very isolated city within my world. The Lost Lands up here is like, there's kind of like an invisible line that cuts up across through these hexes here, where people just don't go. And it's because the land is not recovering like the rest of the world is. It's still just an absolute dangerous train wreck. That's just what it is. And so people don't go there. And there's this assumption that Rhodanos is a lost city. There's no one alive there. And the people of Rhodanos don't leave the city. And they assume that the rest of the world is as dangerous as their backyard is. So it's very isolated, which makes it very good for sort of creating that backbone. People can pluck it and put it in their own homebrew world and just change a few attitudes or something like that. Because it's isolated. Like the idea of Rhodanos, while it sort of hinges on it being very isolated, the flip side of it is it doesn't interact with the rest of the world at all. So people won't be beholden to what the trade attitudes are between different cities, things like that. They won't be beholden to necessarily who would or wouldn't be present in this city and stuff like that. It'd be very easy for people to change motivations, add or take away things for the sake of making it plug into their world. So that's the draw of that one. Again, the struggle with it being that there's just not a whole lot there. I mean, we could think about stretching the forest down here, and that really is not unrealistic. It's not like the forest just stops and there's never a tree in this area. It just means that up here is very dense, heavy, heavy forested areas, and moving down south, as you go down, the forests become more sparse, more intermingled with fields and whatnot. So those are some of the areas that I had thought of. I mean, it would, like, for my own personal projects, I've always thought it would be really cool to just do, like, a straight-up mountain one where, like, all it is dwarven tunnels and stuff like that. I really think a world like that would be fun to create. But for the sake of sharing it, producing something to put out there for people to have access to, that's an awful lot of writing in the same tone that I worry would be kind of bland for people. Like I say, I want to provide a very diverse set of things so that way people have a lot of stuff that they can pick and choose from, because this is going to be a long-term project. I mean, you guys see how much detail I spend putting on these things. It's a long-term thing, and my thought for disseminating it and sharing it is that I got to look into it, and it probably won't come to fruition really until July, because I'm not joking when I say June is packed for me. I've got like today through Thursday, and then things get insane for me for a couple weeks. Good insane, but very insane, and I'm going to be very tired, and I am unlikely to be streaming regularly for a couple weeks once we get to that point. I'll update more on that later. It doesn't really matter right now. Point is, in July, my thought is that I would just start a new notebook that would be explicitly for this region, and I would just, like, once a month update that notebook and make that notebook available through Dropbox or something like that, and just people can come in and they can take the most updated one on the first of the month if they want to, and it's there, bada bing bada boom. That's the thought process anyway. That's what my thoughts are on it. Very far from being ready to actually take action on. But those are what my thoughts are. So, and because it's going to be so modular, again, that's why I want there to be so many, or I want there to be a diverse set of landscapes and stuff for people to have access to. So that way as they're looking through the notebook, they can just, like, open up the sections that they want that have a bunch of interesting stuff, and then just ignore the stuff that they don't want. Yeah, I'm glad you're looking forward to it. Like I say, I'm really, more than anything, I'm just kind of flattered that there's anyone that has interest in this, and I am, I've been encouraged by seeing how quickly I've been getting. It's a small number of followers, but it's a fuck ton more than I thought I was going to get within the first, like, 2 months of me streaming this types of project. There's a small but genuine interest in it. I think that's cool. I like small communities anyway. It's easier to have conversations and keep track of people that way. At any rate, though, if it grows, then I'm not going to complain about that either. But I don't know. A lot of that logistics stuff I will be ironing out as I have time. The hard part about all of it for me is that I'm doing it all on top of while still having my usual 40-hour-a-week job, which limits a lot of my availability for a lot of things. That's just how it goes. But anyway, yeah, that's those are some of the ideas. I guess up here wouldn't be a terrible idea either, doing this region, the Demai region. Gosh, there's just so many options. There's so many choices. I don't know which one to choose. It's a perpetual challenge because I've got so many cool ideas for any of these. I do like the idea of doing something in this region. I really do like the idea of it. I think just because it adds so much. My only concern is because I do things like one hex at a time, if I'm going to be doing it my way, my usual writing style, which is something that I really want to adhere to, that's what people are liking and asking for. If I'm going to do that, it would be really expanding it. It'd be like a 3-hex project, and would that be a lot of stuff. It'd be a slow-moving project for sure. It's only hesitation with that, but it really is a good, interesting area. I mean, the other thing I could do is I could just expand the forest so that the forest goes right up against the mountains, and we could have like a city kind of in the plains over here. We could have like a little startup city that's been growing, again, just like a startup city. And maybe this startup city is trying to create a shortcut that goes all the way down to, like, it's trying to develop a safe trade route that goes all the way down to Moffafetting down there. you know, and so that could be the region or the reason why there is a city in this region. And if we expand and add forest here, then there can be things, there can be like some sort of threat that exists in the mountains and one that exists in the forest, and both would be encroaching on the area and they have to be handled. And that could almost be the campaign, is trying to just secure the area. It's not a bad idea. The campaign theme is just trying to secure the area. You know, and that's the theme that I give, and there's a whole bunch of enemies that have different reasons for doing stuff. But if the general theme of what I make and put out there for people is kill all the bad guys because they're causing problems, boy, is that a really convenient blank slate for people if they want to add more intrigue and more motivation for their players, right? Because we give the monsters and the enemies plenty of motivation. They want to take that area for this, that, or the other reason, and they're doing their things. But then if the generalized, the baseline campaign is stop them, it's that, I mean, that's such a nothing concept for the players, which is almost kind of lame to be producing it, but it works. And it leaves the canvas very, very white for people to for DMs to take this stuff and put their own twist on it. So I actually really like that idea, and I like using this area because, again, we've got forest, mountains, and plains. If we do that, which is a really, really good, solid, diverse approach to things. I mean, that covers almost everything. And it gives us a couple different enemies that can be allies with each other, allies against each other. If we offer enough nuance, then it can turn into something where players can choose to make alliances with one or the other. Oh man, oh man, oh man, I'm getting more and more convinced by the second that this is a good idea. I'm liking it, I'm liking it. Let me just take a look at the rest of the world and see if there's anything else that looks compelling to me. But I really like that suggestion. I like doing that area there. We just make a couple modifications to this map to really encompass everything that we need, and then we go with it. Because, yeah, I mean, like, we could add a small patch of forest or have this patch of forest go out there, but that's a much more drastic edit than just having our forest dip down and have it bump up against the mountains there. And as cool as I like the Frost Marsh is almost like it's almost better served as like a DLC of sorts. If players want their characters to just like be transported to an interesting area for a short excursion, Frostmarsh is almost better for that type of situation. Excuse me, because it's so isolated down there. Like, there's no cities over there. Alright, I think I'm sold. I think we're going to do this area. I think we're going to do it. So this is region Q1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Q5. Hex Q5. So just for the sake of getting things started, because I haven't figured out the logistics yet, I'm just going to add a new, we want to do territory template, copy that, I'm going to go ahead and paste it right there. What did I say it was? Fuck, I already forgot. Shit! Short-term memory is garbage. Q1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Q5 is the region. We're just going to start it off in here. Because it's easy enough for me to copy and paste all the sections of the notebook into whatever new notebook we end up creating for everything. My thought is, too, when I'm producing the notebook, is I'll use pretty much my same thing here, and we'll just really flesh out this region with all kinds of information that'll fit there. And this will just be such a long-term project, right? This isn't something that'll get knocked out in 3 or 4 days. This is a long-term project. Because I think that would be really fun for people who are invested in it, too. The fact that it can be living and growing, because the thing is I live a life, and with my interests and what I like to do, I really can be constantly producing and making D&D stuff. I love doing that, and if there's someone who wants to have sort of a live updating world and always have new stuff to go through from the DM perspective, but they just don't have the time to produce stuff like that, this could be a really fun way for people to just have something that once a month they can see the drop, see what new stuff we've produced on the stream, you know, and then take that to their group and utilize it. I don't know. I think this is going to be a fun project. I think it's going to be a good motivator for me, and I hope it's something that is interesting for people. So we're gonna do Q5 title TBD, to be determined. I don't know what we're gonna name this thing yet, but we're gonna produce this here. So that's there it is right there, and this is our region. So the very first thing that I want to do is I want us to zoom in on this, and I want to start making a region map that is going to be our map, and that I can, you know, try and produce a PDF version that would be included in this thing that I'm gonna give to people. I'm running out of coffee. It's just a tragic thing. Absolutely tragic thing. When I say running out of coffee, I mean I'd have to like walk back and get some. So it's not actually that tragic, but everyone loves caffeine, and it's funny to act like we're addicted, because we are addicted, and it's easier to laugh than it is to face our problems. That got dark. That got a little darker than I intended it to. Okay, so we want to create a new map. I think that is the size that we're going to stick with. Theme, paper, okay. I think those are just, yeah, those are my standard settings here. So here's our region here. Let's figure out what this bad boy is going to look like. So the one thing that's really nice about this is I don't have to worry about any coasts. This is not a coastal region. I might go ahead and plop down a small lake somewhere just for the sake of providing a water source, because it would be nonsensical to try and produce or try and develop a city where there is absolutely no water source. That would be a hard one to explain to any players that are interested in the lore, and I'm yawning because I'm sorry. But generally speaking, we don't have to worry much about doing a coastline, and that's a nice thing. Hold on. I have a fan down here because it's getting kind of warm, but now that it's cloudy and rainy and everything, I don't actually need the fan on. It's just making my feet cold. Alright, so this is the part. Actually, you know what I need to do here? I need to find, let's go to World Atlas. Let's pull up the world map again so I can have both of them open so we can bounce between the two, so that way I can stay consistent with everything. So we gotta zoom in a bit here. Zoom in and be recognizant of the fact that it ends up going out a bit wider than it does tall, the way the maps scale work, but I'm okay with that. I don't really mind that. Play kind of fast and loose with borders and everything. I'm still yawning. Golly, I apologize. It's just rude of me. I'm being so rude. Alright, I had a friend all the way back in elementary school that was like her #1 insult was to call you rude. And it was endearing and hilarious all at the same time. Anywho, anecdotes aside, I'm going to drag this over to my other screen. Just so that way I can have an easier time looking at both all at once. I need to shrink the size though. There we go. Give me an easier size to work with. I also need to make sure I don't cover up the chat, so if people have suggestions while we're doing this, because this is for you guys. This is for you. I'm doing this for you. I'm not doing this for me. Well, kind of for me. It's kind of for me in the sense that I like it. But mostly I'm doing it for you. Okay. First things first. I want to... Let's see here. I gotta remember how to use my tools. We want to use our paintbrush. Add a color. I want to eyedrop. I really wish the eyedropper would work outside of the window of this. Like, I try to go outside the window and it won't do it, and it's annoying because I'd like to just match the color themes. Stop yawning! Oh my god! Oh my god! I don't know why I'm yawning. I need more caffeine. I need more coffee. See, this is why it's a tragedy if I'm running out of coffee. Alright, you know what? Instead of like sitting here and fussing over this, which I don't want to do. I am going to get us our mountain range going here. And typically speaking, I like to set the cities to the scale, to the 20 scale. You can't see it because my beautiful face is in the way. My lovely face. Isn't that just a much better view than the actual stuff that you want to see me working on? What if I could just like move camera. Edit scene. Hold on. Just put me like right here. Put me right there, then you can actually see everything that I'm working on. Look at me go. Look at me go, learning how to use all of this software. No, god damn it. Stop snapping. There we go. Put it right there. Put me right there in the corner. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. There we go. There. Now you can see what I'm working on, and you can see the stuff that I'm working on, and my beautiful face. I don't think the mouse actually shows up, which is a disappointment for sure, but it, you know, things can't always be perfect, okay? I do my best. I do my best. But let's make our mountain range. So usually I like to have the I usually like to set the cities to 20 for the scale, just because that makes it feel like a comfortable scale. They're visible on the zoomed out map, but not like really super tightly. I don't know. I lost my train of thought there because my phone buzzed and it distracted me, and I'm like a puppy. I see something, I'm like, oh, and I forget what's happening. Oh boy. I'm going to put some mountains down, and I'm going to make them bigger, so that way the mountain range feels very grand, comparatively. Yeah, that's a decent size for the mountain range. And the basic line that it's going to follow is there, for the sake of adding some sense of logic to the fact that enemies from the woods that are going to be going there are taking it. I actually think it's going to be more like on that angle there, if I'm remembering it right. Hold up. You know what? Screw it. I'm bringing it back over. I'm bringing it back so that way we can go back and forth. So it's like if our rectangle is going to be around here, it kind of goes like there and there, and it kind of will cover up that whole corner. So really what we ought to do for it is set up in, like, if that's going to be our termination point there, it's going to go there to about there, right? That's going to be our mountain range area. I actually do wish I could I almost wish I could make the mountains bigger, truthfully. What if will it let me 250 or 150? No, it's maxing out at 100. So it's going to be lots of mini little mountains, which is going to look kind of off for our scale. I actually think it would be sensible. I don't want the mountains to be that big. Like, one mountain isn't that big. That is like hundreds of miles based on the scale. But then the flip side here is that, like, if we open up this one, these are going to end up being like 1 mile, which is, on when we're talking scale of mountains, it's pretty small. So I don't know. Let's just work on filling this in, and then we can erase as needed, right? And we can rough it up and stuff like that. See, this is going to look kind of silly, so it's going to take some work to figure out exactly how to get our map right. Because I want it to be visually appealing, right? Like, that's the whole point of bothering with making a map, is it's going to look pretty. Yes, it needs to be functional, and so we can play kind of fast and loose with some things, but ultimately, I want it to look damn good, man. If I'm going to be making this for you guys, and you guys are going to be downloading it and showing it to your players and shit, like, I want to put my best foot forward. I want this to look good. But we're going to take our time with it, right? We'll take our time, and we'll just piece it together one little bit at a time. I think one thing that'll also be kind of nice about doing this project and showing the whole process, because I do get a handful of questions in and out of stream regarding how to handle, like, how to develop a process, right? And how to handle that kind of stuff. Yeah, those are like more dunes and shit, aren't they? Wait, those are bigger. Oh shit, those are way bigger. Hold up. See, we're already finding it. But I do get questions about, you know, sort of what the process is, how do you get motivation for things, and I think showing the process is really good, because it's one thing to write, why am I doing this with such a small thing? I can be doing this so much faster. It's one thing to write like a blog post, right, that talks about where to find inspiration and stuff. But I think a lot of people, myself is as one of them, a lot of people learn through example, right? Like having examples of things to turn to makes it much easier for a lot. Oh, that looks so much more like what I'm after. That looks so much better. I think it's, but yeah, I think there are a lot of people who do sort of, I need to like figure out how to make this not look quite so rows and columns-ish. And I think just doing swirlies here would be good. Not like toilet swirlies. This is a weird joke to make. But with people sort of asking and all these questions, I think there are a lot of us out there, myself being one of them, who learn best through example, either by doing it yourself or watching someone go through and do something. Like, it's one thing to read a procedure. It's one thing to read an idea. But to actually see it, I think, is important. And one of the things that I think is really important and why I'm willing to do such a large, long-term project, as anyone who's seen my writing streams, as anyone who's seen these things, my writing process is not necessarily a fast one. It takes me a lot of time to produce an entire campaign. And I think that a lot of times people can, get inspired when they see a finished product they like, and then end up being discouraged when they realize how much time it takes and how much effort it takes to do these things. And so I think there's value in showing the process so that people can kind of get a better idea of, like, how do you go about just doing these things, right? Like, when something isn't done right away, they get discouraged, not in the sense of, oh, it takes too long to do it, but I must be doing something wrong. Like, I feel like this guy has this thing that's been made, and it's like this beautiful, big, large, expansive world. And I think that can be kind of discouraging for people when they realize it's really hard to make something like that. And so I like the idea of producing this way, so that way people can kind of see how much work it takes to do this, right? And the flip side is they can start to understand the process is a lot of times just going through it and doing it, right? Just sitting down and working on something, right? And these VODs, I think, will be a great opportunity to demonstrate to a lot of people what that looks like, to just sit there and just one little bit at a time. Like, see me sitting here logging on some days and saying, like, I don't know where this is going. I don't know what to do with this. I'm struggling. Let's just work on one little thing that I know and see what grows from that. Because that's what a lot of my writing process is. Starting and doing one small thing and letting more stuff grow from there. Kind of like how I say a lot. I will say it a lot, and it's not my quote. It's something that I think a lot of creatives say and recognize and believe. A lot of times, inspiration doesn't beget creativity. Or rather, inspiration doesn't beget creation. It doesn't beget work. Work begets inspiration. A lot of times you need to get yourself started before you start having those brilliant ideas that people attribute to inspiration, right? It can't always be something that you're waiting for the exact right circumstances of creativity, of having the right tools and resources available to you. You can't rely on it happening that way. Sometimes you need to just sort of make yourself sit down and work. And that's one thing that I think I can provide for people, is just sort of an actual demonstration, an example of, hey, I don't know what I'm doing at this moment. I don't know what I'm setting out to create today, but we're going to start somewhere and go with it, right? And I mean, that's even what today's stream has been, right? I came in here saying I want to start a new project, a project that I'm making explicitly for people, but I don't really know what. But that's okay. Let's just get started and see what happens, right? And so now we've made the decision, and we're going with this region that has some mountains, and already we're creating a map that's going to have some meaning to it, right? So I think, I don't know, I really hope that this can turn into more than just sit and watch me ramble about random bullshit while also making stuff. I hope this can turn into an opportunity for a lot of aspiring DMs and aspiring players too to understand sort of the creative side of this, because I think everyone is capable of being creative. I think the only time people think they're not creative is if they're discouraged for one reason or another, oftentimes because they're not having immediate success and they're worried that means there's something wrong with them. I think everyone can be creative. I think it's just a matter of understanding that creativity doesn't always mean knowing exactly what you're going to make and making that exactly right on the first try. Creativity is more about having an idea and having the dedication to push forward with it. So, I mean, that's the name of the game for me with creativity. I have a lot of natural creativity, but my execution on things struggles a lot. So, at any rate, so we've got our mountain range here. This is already looking much more natural, right? And people were probably watching and seeing, but just for the sake of, again, like, I want this to be something where people can kind of go back through the VODs and sort of understand how things came to be and what my process is. One, so that way if they're using what I put out there, they can sort of have the editor's notes for it. And alternatively, too, if people see what I create, like the idea, and want to go about creating their own, they can understand how I came to it, right? So if that's what you want to do, and certainly wouldn't advocate for people doing things exactly like me, but sometimes seeing how someone else does something is a really good springboard for then eventually creating your own stuff. Surprise, surprise, I had a second beverage ready to go. It's not coffee, but it's there. And things just got very quiet in my apartment because the AC turned off. That unit, I swear to God, they've got a unit in my complex. It's like in my, or not in my complex, in my unit. Each unit has their own AC. Each apartment has their own AC unit. I swear to God, if I were to open up the panel, the panel to get to that maintenance region there, if I were to do that, I swear to God, I would find a full-sized one that would handle a 3-story home. The thing is so damn loud for just an apartment. It's insane. It's absolutely psychotic how much noise it causes. Ridiculous. Anyway, tangent aside. So, working with the mountain range here, we started off with our framework there, but obviously it looked flat out man-made. It looked downright man-made. And it just looked weird. It looked weird the way it was, but it was our starting point. It gave me the general framework, and so the process of making it look more natural started off. I just kind of was, you saw me, I just kind of was deleting things and adding things in, right? And so I'm still kind of working on that. I'm not 100% satisfied with this yet. I almost want there to be a bit of a jut up there. But there's like there's a rhythm and a rhyme to how I'm going about this, and the big thing is for me is I try to always think about at least having a sense of realism, and the best way I find to achieve that sense of realism is to be cognizant and considerate of what causes mountain ranges to open up, what causes these things. And the truth of it is, what causes it is tectonic plates. Well, how do those end up? Do those end up looking like, it's tectonic plates moving together? Typically speaking, I'm no geologist, so I could be butchering this, but my understanding is, typically speaking, for a mountain range, what'll happen is you've got two plates coming together, they collide, and as they continue to move, they push up the earth, and suddenly you've got a mountain, right? And that's kind of how mountains form. So if we've got a mountain range, really that means we've got a large tectonic plate ridge, right, of two plates that are moving together. And so I think about what would be sort of like a natural looking earthly set of things. And the idea to me is it wouldn't be in a straight line. It wouldn't be a surgical cut in the earth if we're talking about just natural tectonic plates, right? It would be a general like it would be a general line, but it would be a crack, like, you know, like if you were, like, we've got two plates that have different edges to them that are then kind of meeting together. So things are going to be jagged. You're going to have offshoots going off in different ways. It's going to be curved in general. So we've kind of created a generalized curve here, right? As if one of the plates is here and it kind of goes like that, and this other plate goes kind of up and then around like that, right? And those are the two that are moving together that's causing that. So that's kind of what's informing this area here. Now the other thing to think about with a mountain range that makes it appear to make this whole thing more natural is the fact that we're not going to have a straight line, even in the sense that, like, let me rephrase that, we're not going to have delineated edges to our mountain range. It's going to vary. Different parts of the plate are going to connect at different times that are going to result in different amounts of mountains getting pushed up, right? That's just how it works. That's what geology is. So we've got our mountain range here, and we've got a few different openings here. So that's our start there. And I'm still not convinced that I like this upper ridge here. I'm not convinced. I'm going to quickly go back to our source and see. So I've got it curving down more than what's in here, but that's okay. That's okay, because this map is not meant to be viewed that closely. This map is meant to be viewed out here. You can kind of see there is that general arc going, right? And so I think it's okay that even though in this one we have a more pronounced arc there at the end, it's there and it follows generally what would be happening. So I think this is pretty good. The thing that I'm struggling with is trying to figure out, I'll make that, oh, that immediately makes it look a bit better. Immediately like that a bit better. Could do something like that. And I don't mind the mountain range being a bit thinner up here in the tip than it is down there. Just the tip. Because the mountain range, like, that's the end of it there, which means that's where our plates, like, if we've got our, I don't even know how to, like, demonstrate it with my hands. Like, suppose my hands, now you're looking at the, like, bird's eye view of the plates, right? They're hitting right here, and so they're overlapping in these three fingers here, the three middle ones there. But then at the pinkies, they're kind of, like, pulling away, right? And here the plates are going to continue to interact, right? And they might kind of go there, and there'll be just more and more jagged edges, almost more like if you start here, to go in, and then eventually there'll be more contact, and then more contact, and so just point is up near the edges there will be less contact because there are fewer mountains, because there'll be less contact between the plates, whereas around here in the central part of it, that's like the main interaction point, right? That's where we've got things really just overlapping with each other. So I like that to be sparse, plus that adds some intrigue, right? That gives us some mountain passes for if we're going to have our forest up here, right? How can they, players, you know, armies and stuff like that, how can they pass through the mountains? What are some different approaches to that? It's an important consideration, right? Because, well, whoopsie, yikes, my bad. Accidentally caught on a cable back there. He said, betraying the fact that he's garbage at cable management for his computer. So that's one thing that's important with writing these things is, yes, we want there to be enough realism that people can buy this and it doesn't feel too weird and made up and unrealistic, because people, while it's accepted that this is an entirely fantasy region, people respond better to things that are relatable. And things that are relatable tend to have at least a touch of realism to them. Right, that's why people love songs that cut deep into the artist's, you know, psyche or experiences, right? Because there's something real to it. There's something that you can bond to in that as a viewer or a listener or partaker of the arts. And so we wanna sort of temper these things, right? The flip side is we still, like, we want there to be realism, but we also want this to be a functional game. And sometimes we have to tweak realism for that to happen, right? Because think about if this were a full, thick mountain range. People wouldn't bother passing through it. There wouldn't be that intrigue of things going through there. Like, people need to believe that, like, you know, if there was a forest here with Forest Lich King or whatever that wants to attack the city over here, why would they go through, if this were all solid and full, why would they go through all those mountains? That would add days compared to just going around them. Especially if we're going to have some sort of dwarf slash Duergar thing happening in these mountains, right? They're going to look for a pass and just try to fight their way through the pass. If it's there, right? If there's just one little thing, like if there's one mountain that they have to go over and then they can go through the pass there, that's a much more manageable risk, and maybe one that they would be willing to take for the sake of having the element of surprise on the city, right? Like, that makes it believable. So this pass that I put in here is entirely intentional. These areas in here are more about providing some opportunities for things to create and players to interact with, is sort of my thought. So, yeah. Yeah, see? Yeah, I think that's good. I like where this is at right now. I actually kind of like this. So, I'm going to take a pause from that because now I want to add in our forest. And now these ones, I want the trees to be kind of, I just want them to be kind of in league with the mountains. Again, this isn't meant to be necessarily a to-scale mock-up of the map. This map isn't meant to be to scale. It's more meant to be just representative of what exists in the lands. There will be a scale there, and distances will kind of be there. But, like, any of these trees, even the smallest one, would end up being like a 2-mile tall tree, and that just ain't happening. So we can make them a bit bigger, make this a bit easier to fill in. Let's take a quick look at the contours of our official Siski Forest, because I will need to add that in there and stretch it down there. Let's take a consistency, because whatever I make, I'm making it for you guys to use, but I'm also making it for me to use, man. Like, I'm going to go through the trouble to make this stuff. I want to fucking use it too. It's going to be awesome. I want us to be proud of it. I want to be proud enough that I'm going to use it. Doggone it. So that's what's going to happen. That's just what's going to happen here, and people are just going to have to accept that and be okay with it. Truth be told. Truth be told. So, yeah, so there's our contours there. It's going to go down, but it really is going to kind of meet up with this area, kind of going along this route here, right? And it goes around those mountains there, and it'll go around there. It's kind of what our forest is going to be. And boy, oh boy, this is going to end up looking thick, so I'm probably going to have to... It's going to look very dense here. It's not going to be quite what I want it to look like, but I'm going to start off filling it out, and then we'll work on thinning and then rethickening and so on and so forth until it's satisfactory. Because I think what we can do is we can do kind of like this. So that looks like a good contour that goes into our forest there. I like that. I think that looks good. I think that'll work. Now we're going to take this, we're going to make it very small. And we're just going to kind of randomly click around in here. Thin it out a little bit here. We need to re-thicken a couple of areas, but if we do this, it makes it look a little less obscene. And how thick it is. Oops, did not mean to erase those mountains. I'll put those back there. But we also want to, again, just like with the mountains, we want our forest to not necessarily have a sharp delineation line. It's okay, and we can kind of get away with it on the big map, because the big map isn't meant to be zoomed in. It's meant to be just sort of representative of the regions. But on a more detailed map like this, we want it to be a bit more realistic. Again, just dropping in a bit of that realism. We want there to be a sense of realism to this. Not because anyone's going to buy that this is a real region or accept that fact, but rather so that way it's something that players and DMs alike can feel attached to, invested in, and be able to like relate to. You know, that's a really key component to having something be compelling and believable. Just filling in a couple holes that were a little too big. See, as it is right there, I actually think that looks visually pretty appealing. It gets across the fact that there's a thick forest there, but it doesn't just look just a silly level of oppressive. And that's good. So that gives us our forest, mountains, and plains. It gives us 3 terrains for this new region that we're working on, which is really, it really is what I was going for. Now we need to place a city. So So let's find a good city. This is going to be a city very focused on farming and agriculture, I think, as well as having a robust guard training facility, right? Because like we sort of discussed at the beginning, this city, for it to make sense to be here, I think the most compelling, most sensible, I guess sensible is a word and it fits there, most sensible approach. Why are we not letting me zoom? Is this map frozen? It's not frozen. There we go. Okay. I don't know why it was being weird, but now it's not being weird, and that's better. So we're working on this one right here. And for this to be a believable thing, I think the compelling idea is that rather than... So I tend to lean pretty heavy on the bad guy wants to take over region for some reason. Players must answer the call to adventure to stop, said individual. I dip from that well a lot, just because I think it's really good for forcing players to play the game as opposed to just turning into murder hobos, right? It's a good way of railroading them and being like, you can't tell me that there's nothing for you guys to do in this game because I've told you exactly what's happening and it's time for you guys to stop it. But I'm going to take a different approach for this. Since I'm creating this for widespread, if we have the motivation being from the good guy side, the good guys being sort of the conquerors, so to speak, right? It's like we're establishing the city. We want to make sure the city is fortified and safe, so that way we can establish a trade route from Fosvik up here down to Mofafetting. And so that way we can save just like weeks, months on journeys because we don't have to go through there. And then So it opens up, it provides, I think that ends up being really good because it actually kind of covers both bases when you think about it, right? There's obviously the motivation for the players to go out and act, which is to say to go out and actively stop whatever villains we end up putting in our forest and in our mountain here. It gives them motivation to do that. But it also kind of forces it because regardless of what they decide their motivation is, those villains are going to be coming down and sending in troops to this area. So they will be continually called to action, which is good. And the other thing that's good about it, if there's just the generalized thing of like bad guys are present, your job is to stop them, that is really blank slate enough that anyone else who wants to take this and make their own campaign out of it, there's a lot of wiggle room for coming up with your own motivations and reasons why villains or heroes are doing what they're doing. So I think that's going to be really good, and I think the sensible thing is to put it somewhere down here at the base of the mountains. They would almost use the mountains to like sort of like back against the wall, and in some ways that would like trap them, but the flip side of it is then the city has fewer sides to guard, and they could work on making more of their trained up guard resources play a role in eventually expanding the path out to continue down here. And what's interesting about that is that actually would provide an interesting tie-in for future campaigns to further the idea. But at any rate, we need to put a city down. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm thinking one of these sprawling villages. Now, like I said, normally I'll do like the size 20 for a lot of these things. But since this is our main city, I think I'm going to put this as like a 50. I'm going to put that right there, I think, maybe? Somewhere around here. So the city, if we wanted it backing up, they could kind of put it like it maybe in this alcove here. We can have like a real, oh shit, what's the city in D&D, the one that's up against the mountain? It's not Rohan. That's the one that's the field place. It's embarrassing that I forgot it, but fucking I don't remember it, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm going to magically think about it. But yeah, we can kind of have a sense of that. It's almost like Rohan meets that city, right? Because I want it to be more of a sprawling village, because there's going to be a lot of farming and agriculture going on as they try to secure a route. But then if they're kind of tucked up in there, the logic for them is to be, we only have to worry about attacks basically from the south. From the north, our backs are against the mountains, not a big deal. And I think that's I think that's good, and I think that has value. I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. I'm gonna put it up to 60. And we're gonna put our city there. That's our makeshift, our growing, our budding city. And that's probably gonna be the only city that I put in this area, because for the sake of consistency for my use of this area, I want it to fit in my world. I'm just trying to make it general enough that people can make changes to it so it fits their worlds. But that's the only city that's going to be in this region, and that's not a problem. I think it's easy to think about, like, realistically there would be more villages or cities and stuff like that. I think that does add a little bit of, again, that sort of realism to it. But when it comes to gameplay, you really only need one city. You need one source of shops and one source of campaign hooks for people that want or need jobs done. You really only need one source of that kind of stuff. So I think just the one city right there is good. Now I do want to add in a sense of lake here, like a lake, a water source. And I'm thinking maybe we can put like could almost put the lake like right here and have it be like right at the edge of the mountain range, and it backs up against the mountains. Like if there's a lot of drainage coming from these mountains, that ends up in that area there, and then we could put some rivers that kind of go out from it as well. But I'm thinking if we put the lake just like why isn't it painting the water? I don't understand why it's not giving me water here. I don't understand. Oh. Because it's assuming the whole thing is water. Yep, that's what it is. God damn it. Okay, so it was assuming the whole thing was water. That's weird. And I should know that that's how it does it. Right, I should know that that's what its MO is. But that's no problem. We can fill this in. Luckily, it will not mess with our with what we have already put on here. It will not mess that up. Thank God. Do you know how pissed I would be if I had to recreate all of that shit? I would be at a point where I'm like, we're just gonna. It looks like someone peed all over it. We're at a point that I would just be like, we're just gonna leave it as is, and the land is gonna be water, and the water is gonna be land, and people are just gonna accept that because ultimately, visually, they're not really all that different. So, but no, we good, so we can do it properly. Can do it the real way, the way it's supposed to be done. It's kind of weird that they have the baseline being water instead of land, but I digress. Okay, now we can go to our water tool. I want to erase all this stuff. Give me a bigger eraser. Here we go. Okay, now I'm going to paint some water. Is that doing just fresh water? That's just doing freshwater brush. Oh, that's water appearance. That's not what I want. Oh. I know the way I do this. I know the way to do this. So we just make our lake doing it this way. The problem, the reason I don't ever do the freshwater one is I don't like the aesthetic when it like has that weird blackish look to it. It seems strange to me because it doesn't really offer up any sort of coasts or anything like that. Like I can see the value of it, I suppose, for situations like some very small lakes and ponds. I can see the value in that, but for me that's just not. It's not my. Yeah, I don't know. I like being able to sort of see what the coast is and see how shallow different areas are. So this is going to be. This is a pretty sizable lake, all things considered here. And I just want to. So I want to make sure it's as big as I'm envisioning it should be. I'm thinking a shape like this will be fun. I love the way the elevation tool ends up doing water in this, because it just ends up making the edges very rough. Like with that roughness, it makes the edges look rough, which is, again, I keep harping on, that adds that sort of sense of realism to the map, right, and makes it seem sensible. which is really good for immersion. It's a very important part of immersion, is having things be believable. So if we do something like that, that's a decent lake right there. I don't mind that lake. And the idea is that it's just like water runoff from the mountains, right? In different rivers and stuff like that. But then it gives that water there that would make it sensible for a city to be there. And it really actually, I like this, tucking them up in that little corner like that. I actually really like that approach for this city, because that makes it, given from a fictional standpoint, in a world that's destroyed, I think this ends up working really well, because they're going to want to minimize the number of places they're attacked by. And while it's true there are plenty of nasties and yuckies that live in water and live in mountains, generally speaking, the risks of those things coming to them, things in the mountains wanting to stay within the protection of the mountains, and things in the water not being able to leave the water, really offers a lot of protection for these guys, because the biggest threats are going to be the ones that come in from the plains, and they've pretty much narrowed it down to they will only come from the south. So it's kind of a sensible place for a fictional city, or at least I'm saying that it is, so that way I can pat myself on the back. So there we have it. I think that's good. Yeah, I think that's a good sized lake too. I don't want the lake to be too outlandish. Let me just look at overworld here. So we're putting the lake, if we're here, we're putting the lake right up there. Yeah, so it would be a mountain runoff. So I think it really would be just like a pure freshwater lake, pretty isolated, comes from mostly the mountain runoff is what produces it. There's like a dip in the earth at the base of the mountains that just kind of pools up with all that water to make a freshwater lake. I think that is, oh, good as it is, I don't think we need to do any other sort of like rivers or anything. I don't think it would make sense. So let's head back. Yep. I like this. I like how this is looking so far. We've got one city there, and we can name it and put a label on it, and then we can start filling in the dots with all kinds of other stuff that we come up with. Let's come up with a name. Let's go ahead and find ourselves our fantasy name generator here. fantasynamegenerators.com. Alright, so just for the sake of my own personal consistency, being from Fosvik and Siski Forest, those are very like Russian type of naming conventions there, so I'm gonna stick with that. Hey, Enforcer Hound, things are going all right? How are things going for you? We're starting a new project today. I have been getting requests to put the things that I create and make them sort of available for people who are interested in using them, both in terms of templates and in terms of actual campaigns I make. And so in the name of doing that, I've decided to just kind of start a new project so we can just kind of have like a communal effort thing that we make. I go through the process of making stuff, and then I just sort of try to update it and make it available, hopefully starting next month. June is going to be very helter-skelter for me, so but that's kind of what we're working on here. And so we've started, and today I've just been working on making our region map here. And this is what we're working on. We're working on the region that is up in here. New character. Oh man, new characters. New characters are always fun, man. I tell you what. Yeah, I think this will be a fun project. I think it'll be fun for me to start something fresh, something different than what I'm working on. It's also something that I'm not using for any of my campaigns, so I don't have to worry about any of my players figuring out that I'm making stuff and producing it for that's going to be for them, so that way it's less likely that they're going to be little buttheads and try to find the answers before we play. So yeah, no, it'll be good. It's going to be a fun project, and I think it'll be a good opportunity to sort of to sort of present the writing process for people with a candy style onion domes buildings. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that I'm not the only person who thinks they look like onion domes. 100%. I always think that, fanboy. So I'm glad I'm not alone in thinking about that. Is it Is it a stereotype? It's probably a little bit of a stereotype, but I mean, you know, I feel like that's the type of stereotype that they'd probably be proud of because it's like a cultural thing, right? It's always hard to kind of navigate that kind of stuff, right? Is something a stereotype, and if so, is that a negative or a positive thing? I always think it comes down to attitude. As long as you're not looking down on them, it's probably a perfectly fine thing. I don't know. I don't want to get into the the social politics of that crap. But yeah, so that's the project that we're working on, generally speaking. So, but yeah, we're gonna do like a Russian thing. I want to do place names. How do I usually end up just doing like because they're all like made up names, just like follow conventions. It's usually easiest to just do like the Russian names and then like take one of them and attribute it to a city or something. Oh, hell yeah, Anastasia. Oh my god, that would be such a fun little Easter egg mission to put in this area. Just some little bit where there ends up, phylacteries in the movie. Yeah, you're damn right, man. That would actually be really fun, just as a little side convention. Holy shit, Rasputin is a lich. Like, I think he was a lich in real life, and he just used the power to siphon and keep himself alive. That guy survived so many weird, bizarro-ass assassination attempts. There's no way there wasn't something ethereal going on with him. There's just no way. There's just no way. There has to have been. Has to have been. The guy was just... Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, too, is I think... I don't know, I think... And granted, this is filtered through what media and social media and official media presents to us about Russian culture and stuff like that. But I feel like Russian culture is really a good fit for like this post-apocalyptic thing because they just live such rural, drunken lives. Like, that sounds terrible. But like, I mean, just think about it. You live in a post-apocalypse. You'd have to be very good at just living in isolation and making fun and making your own fun with whatever's at hand. And like, fermentation is one of the most available hobbies. Gosh. Yeah, that's fair, fanboy. Hey, how's it going, Weary Warlord? That's fair, fanboy. But yeah, no, like, I think it's... Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's fun. But let's just find a name for this city. I feel like we can do. I think we can just find out. We can. Oh my gosh! Like, look at these names. These are so fun. Fyodorovich, something like that. I don't know. I feel like somewhere in here there's place names. If we do like city town names, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. We can do Russian town names. That's what we're looking for. Call of Cthulhu giving you the heebie-jeebies. Well, yeah, that's not a secret, Warlord. That's what it's for. What did you expect? Oh, boy. Oh, my gosh. There's so many consonants in all of these names. This is amazing. I like this one. Tobakai. I don't know. Let's just randomize. Let's see here. Pavlorbash. I wanted to have like 800 syllables. Just the more, like, here we go. Blagovetamak. It's a fun one. I don't know, they're just so fun to say. Oh, boy. Making me feel scared on an existential level. Yeah. Yeah. Man, I get that way anytime I read Call of Cthulhu stuff. I have to plan ahead whenever I'm getting involved in Lovecraftian horror in general. Novotroykladny. I kind of like that one. I can't pronounce it for shit, but I like it. I like the looks of it. It just looks fun. It looks enjoyable, doesn't it? It looks enjoyable. With all the UFO talk, I have a hard time taking UFO talk too seriously, because I don't know, there's a lot of reasons for it, but I think ultimately for me what it comes down to is it's like if it's real aliens and they have all of these ships that can do all these weird things that people profess it is, why worry about it? Because clearly they don't want to kill us, because if they wanted to, they would have done it already. But 9 out of 10 times it really just ends up being like, oh, there's a really easy way to explain this that is actually logical and doesn't feel like someone just giving us the runaround. So it just, I don't know. I don't get too worked up over that. Not saying that it's bad for you to sort of see that and wonder. Because I, just generally speaking, I tend to get more so, I guess what I'm saying is I get more existential crises from just stargazing in general and just wondering what's out there as opposed to what's here is I guess really more to the point of what I'm saying. But I really like this name. I'm going to steal this one. I'm going to use that one. I copy that. Playing a solo adventure in Call of Cthulhu. Starter set, stuck in an isolated town, and a kid just told you to get out before the festival. Oh yeah, that is so classic Lovecraftian. Like the one character that's like cognizant enough of the situation to be like, leave, get out while you can. Like just like that. Like I mean, you know, and you see that in media all the time. It's used. It's like such a functional trope, right? To have everyone except for one person be all like, this is normal, everything's normal, and that one person's like, get out, like leave here, save yourself, right? That is such a classic trope. It's such an effective one though. Okay, hold on, I'm gonna, before I lose too much track of what the fuck I'm trying to do here, I want to make a label here. Put the label right there. There we go. That's our thing. I want to make the font size a little bit bigger. Go with 38. That seems functional. And I want to add some curvature because that just makes it look pretty. I'm just gonna kind of angle it a little bit so it looks like it matches the curvature of the city itself. Bada bing, bada boom. There we go. There's our city name. There's our city name. Yeah, so you can burn the book. I don't know. You got to be careful with burning things. Sometimes that completes the ritual. You just throwing that one out there. Just be careful with burning us the proper way. It's like, what do they say with like Ouija boards? You can't burn them because like if you use that to open the doorway or something like that, then the portal is already open. So like burning it is the opposite of what you want to do because then it's impossible to close the portal the way through. That's, I don't know. Why would I say that? I'm trying to warn you, okay? I'm trying to help you. Imagine if I hadn't said anything, you burned it, and then you were stuck with Cthulhu living under your bed forever, okay? Like, I feel like I shouldn't, like, don't shoot the messenger here. Alright? I'm trying to assist. Oh, boy. Okay, want to make a path here. I want to make a path that comes up to, that comes up around here. Not helping. Well, you know what? I can't stop you from being paranoid. I can only stop you from being haunted, okay? So that's what I'm trying to help with here. I'm trying to make it easier for you to not be demolished by some weird ass fucking like octopus monster here. I'm not trying to make you feel comfortable about it. So the pathway for this thing goes up along here. Oh shit, that's not what I meant to do. I didn't mean to undo it. God damn it. I pressed the wrong button. Sometimes my ineptitude really just amazes even myself. Okay, I want to actually make the width of this just a little bit bigger here. Yeah, I think that looks more visually appealing. So the pathway comes around here. Goes up and goes out here. Yeah, it just kind of follows that curvature of the lake, because we're trying to match it to here. Yeah, and it would go pretty much straight north after that point, because the idea is that the city is down in here, and it was placed as a midway point coming from here in an attempt to connect Fosvik with Moffafetting. is what I think the concept that I'm looking for here is. So I think we can do that, and I think actually what would be kind of fun. Let me see here. I don't like. Hold up. Right. Edit points here. Yeah, I can't. I don't like it bumping out as much as it did. It just looked weird and unnatural. There we go. That's better. Much better. Much better. The entire half is silent. That sounds right. That sounds right. It's a beautifully angry language. That's, you know, and that's the type of thing that I always laugh when people are like, English is such a hard language to learn. Is it really? Is it? I feel like it has its bizarro points, but I think every language has some of those, and let's not act like it's the least sensical language that exists out there. Like, let's not pretend that that's the case. All right? It's just that its own nonsensical things are different than the rest of the nonsensical things. So if we're used to other nonsensical things, German makes sense. It's just weird. They just keep making. They don't have sentences. They just make run-on words. They don't have a sentence. They don't have modifiers. They just change the word to have like infinitely long words. Boy. And for me, so as someone who, well, yeah, like you just kind of hit on exactly what I was gonna say. For me, the one that gets weird is when you have languages that gender items. Like what? Why does a table have to be male or female? What delineates that? How did we decide that type of thing? You know, because I've spent years studying French in the past, and French is like, it's fun. It was always fun, but I always struggled with it because of exactly those reasons. I'm like, why does it matter if the grass is male or female? I don't think that's how plants work. Yeah, that's right. You're goddamn right. Don't assume gender. I don't make any assumptions about the gender of this, that, or the other chair. It just seems rude and uncaring. I'm going to just make this because I don't like when the pathway looks too linear. It would make sense for there to be some things that would make the pathway wander a little bit more. The other thing that I'm thinking would be kind of fun with this is because it's meant to be working on the pathway here, I kind of want to make a second pathway that goes like, that's like starting the path down, but then it like, that's as far as they've gotten with it. And then we're just going to put, I'm going to go to labels, or not labels, sorry, symbols, that's what I want. And we're just going to find like a little tent, like right here. A village, like a tent. I'm going to put it like right there. Right, and that's just like that. That's the outpost, right? And that's how far they've been able to sort of like be making the journey and the trek, trying to establish that safe trade route. So, hell yeah. Yeah, you're like, you misgender the fork. He gets pissed off, and as you're eating it, stabs you in the lip or something. It's just got a mind of its own. That was an interesting. Don't clip that. Please don't clip that. Don't clip that hand motion. That's awkward. It's uncomfortable. It's gonna give people the wrong impression about what the nature of this stream is. Okay. See, no, this isn't OnlyFans. Okay, I can't now. You can get me in trouble. Oh boy. So yeah, there we go. There we go. There's our. I actually think that's a really solid start. I really like the looks of this. This is a really good start for this map, for this new region here, this new project that we're working on. I really like this. And I'm looking at the clock, and I'm thinking this is probably a good time for me to call it a session, because every second that I'm on here is a second more that it's going to get awkward because the construction guys have to finish up a couple of things, and they're going to be showing up at my place sometime this afternoon. And it's going to get really awkward if I'm sitting here talking to no one while they're putting cabinet doors on. So I think having made this, I think this is going to be a really good Hot Tubs and OnlyFans prep. Oh God, no, I'm not getting into that one. That is an absolute hornet's nest of opinions that I am just not even gonna play a part in. All right, people can do what they want, people can watch what they want, and we're going to leave it at that. And I am never going to venture into any of that, any more of that than I absolutely have to, which I have to do no such thing. But yeah, I think I'm going to call it a stream there. I think this is a solid start. We've got our map, and we can start building a region from here. It's exciting. It's a fun new project. And again, I kind of talked about it at the beginning, but we got some different people watching. I will I will reiterate here for the conclusion here. The intent is to hopefully next month, because June is just absolutely slammed for me. It's going to be really hit or miss whether I can even stream or not. But hopefully starting in July, I really want to try and start making this into like a project that I can just like have a separate OneNotes notebook or something for people, that I can set up some sort of Dropbox or something for people to download it as I'm updating it, right? And just like a monthly update or something like that, and people can just have access to it. I want to make something. People have requested that I provide for them the templates that I use and the stuff that I create, and I'd love to do that. I'd love to provide these things for other DMs to use, because I think it's helpful, and I think it's fun. I think it's a fun idea to be live streaming the process of making stuff there, so people can have access to all this stuff, and they can just sort of like see what it takes to make a campaign. I think that'd be great. Weird Warlord, you are looking for confrontation, man, and you can do what you want, but I ain't touching it. People can do what they want, and I don't care about it beyond there. I just don't care. People can do what they want, and they watch what they want, and you can go ahead and pick those fights all you want. That's your MO. That's your prerogative. But at any rate, that's kind of what I'm working on here. Yeah, and I think like I say, I think this is a good place to stop. So thank you for everyone who joined. Thank you for anyone who was encouraging about this project. I'm glad to hear that people think it's a cool idea and are interested in it. It's really flattering to me. Like I said it before, but it's really flattering to me that people are interested in what I'm producing. And I'm really encouraged by that, and I like that. So yeah, heck yeah, we'll keep doing it for people. So yeah, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for being interested. The rest of this week, I do intend to stream every day this week. Friday's a question mark. Starting this weekend, I will be very busy for the next week and a half. So this week, streams I expect to be normal and standard. But next week, I do not expect I will be streaming at all. Maybe in the middle of the week I'll have the opportunity to, but I will be traveling to various places, and will likely not. In some of those places, I will not even have access to internet, so it will be impossible for me to stream. So just personal vacations coming up. I'm taking my own little week-long summer vacation, essentially is what it is, and so there might be opportunities for me to stream at some point in there, but don't hold your breath. But this week I expect the streams to be normal. Tomorrow, I'll be streaming some more Mass Effect. We'll be having some fun with that. And then Wednesday and hopefully Friday, more writing. Thursday, more Mass Effect. But that's what's coming up. That's what I got. So again, thanks a million for everyone who stopped by. Thanks for everyone who's watching the VODs. As always, the VODs are up on YouTube, and I will probably be retitling this for the sake of the VOD, to make it clear that this is part of the new project and what part of the project it's available for. It pertains to. So that way, when people are starting to look at the map, they can see what the process took to make the map, if that's what they're interested in, so on and so forth. So, but yeah. That's what I got. I'm so glad that you guys stopped by. It's really meaningful to me that people are interested and supportive and here to see what I'm up to. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing you guys again next time. So take care until then.